Hello and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to this session, yet another session of inspiring conversations. And as always, I'm live from Kópavogur, Iceland. And just to get you going, we need I need more subscribers on YouTube and Spotify and wherever. So if you just go and find hands-on coaching, inspiring conversations on YouTube, Spotify, LinkedIn, Facebook, and if you can't remember what I said, then just use Dr. Google or Mr. Bing or whatever machine you want to look for. So as always, why inspiring conversations? It's all about creating conversations that really matter. We are diving into ways to connect deeply, break down barriers, and build moments that inspire trust and growth, whether it's with your team, at work, or in your everyday chats. We will bring more positivity, realness, and impact into every conversation. And as I mentioned, this is live from my hometown, Kópavogur in Iceland. We are close to Reykjavik, but Kópavogur, of course, is much better because it's smaller. So, and I live near the sea or ocean. So that was the thing that I am supposed to say. So my guest today is an author, and he's Scottish. I don't know if I should put subtitles underneath because I'm Icelandic and he's Scottish. So what will become of the English that we speak? But he wrote this book, Let's Reimagine the World Together. Soft Power is the New Hard Edge. And my guest today is Mr. Mike Stevenson. Yay!
Hello.
Hello. So, how Scottish are you?
Well, I'm. Listen, I've been raised in Scotland. I was born here. My mother was Lebanese, and so I consider myself Scottish, but with this Lebanese tint, which I like. I like it. It probably explains my love of food and my love of the sunshine. Which
Well, where in Scotland were you raised? Like, because there is.
Edinburgh, the capital.
Oh, is that more posh than Glasgow? Because you don't sound Scottish as some, like you have
Well, no,
degree
look,
of Scottish.
I speak for a living, so I've had to, try and
Ah,
clarify how I speak because I do quite a lot of work down south, and so in England, I mean. So yes, I've developed, I think, a slightly clearer Scottish accent than the one I had when I was younger.
yeah. So you have adopted. We don't have this problem in Iceland because we just, well, there's something about punctuation, like, but
Yeah, yeah,
some
yeah,
word. But we can travel freely around, and we know that we will
absolutely.
be understood.
We'll
So,
understand each other very well.
well, yes. Well, I started learning English at an early age. So, but welcome to Inspiring Conversations, Mike.
Hmm.
And we are going to talk about our topic is, but
Yeah.
as always, we
Yeah.
can go offline and whatnot, like because
No.
that is the thing we do on
Yeah.
Inspiring Conversations. The topic is awake at work without the wake up call. So, and people can, if they are interested, people can ask questions, they can
Good.
comment on LinkedIn and Facebook, and then I will post them here. And I will, like, if you don't see them, then I can just stop you and say blah blah
Hmm.
blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And so we can set off. Let's start with the book. You mentioned in our conversation before we
Yeah.
went online that this is a self-biography or like.
It's well, it's the first few chapters are all about the things we need to do in the world.
Yeah.
Like climate change, like you know, bringing democracy back into some kind of real form. so that we have genuine participation in decision making. I've got a whole bit about, children should be involved now in helping to shape the future. And I've worked with primary age children, junior school, and they're full of ideas. They actually, they do. If you ask them to, design the city that they would like to live in, it's a city we should all be living in. They're ahead of us, and they
Yeah.
see things very clearly, and they're very alive to social injustice. A child walking past a homeless person sees a homeless person and they cannot understand it.
Yeah.
They don't think, oh, it's someone who's homeless. It's just a modern phenomenon. They don't think that. They think it's appalling that anyone should sleep out. And I go into more autobiographical stuff. And of course, I spent, a couple of years homeless when I was young as well, from the age of 16 to 18. So I get it. And it meant I was thrown out of school young. And I think in some ways, the early experiences I had were the best education imaginable, because I didn't learn to be compliant. I had my own ideas, and I developed my own spirit of creativity and resourcefulness, which I think are the keys for living in the modern age.
Is it when you were homeless? Is this prior to Thatcher or after Thatcher? Like, because that is also a big
Prior,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah. So because as Reagan said, I don't think I don't know I can't remember if
yeah,
Thatcher said it as well. He said that people who are unemployed and whatnot, they are just lazy. So I gather
yeah.
that you were not lazy, you were just not
Ooh,
like, because you
no,
mentioned before that you did
yeah,
not thrive in school,
yeah,
and you got kicked out, and
yeah.
on now at your age 29-ish plus, you got your diagnosis with
ADHD,
yes, thank
yeah,
you.
extraordinary.
And I am
Yeah.
like a social educator. I should know that word. But
Oof.
so how was it for you when you when you then got your life back at 18, or you got your home, or you could like
Well,
move out of it, and
yeah,
then you hear people like Thatcher and Reagan talk like this.
yeah, yeah. Oh,
What yeah,
we had a home secretary just 2 years ago describe homeless people as having made a lifestyle choice. Now, I can assure that minister um, that it is not a lifestyle choice. I actually went down to London to get a job, and I got a job. And I was sacked within 3 days because the customers couldn't understand my Scottish accent. So I was thrown out of work. And I mean, things were bad at home. I mean, I had to leave home,
yeah,
just to explain that. So it
yeah,
wasn't a lifestyle choice. And then, it just happened. You can't get a job if you don't have somewhere to stay. You can't get somewhere to stay unless you've got a job to pay for it. So it's a loop, and you
yeah,
you you find yourself sinking into this inevitable pit. And it went on for almost 2 years, and various things happened. I faced dangers, had my life threatened, I had a knife at my throat, I was thrown downstairs when I was sleeping. These were concrete steps. So things happened, but gradually I got stronger and more resilient, and I had this unerring belief that things were going to get better. The best is yet to come, which is a mantra I repeat to myself always. And I'm now 75, coming on to 76 in 2 months. And I still feel the best is yet to come, and I've got a lot to offer. So it's kind of unstinting belief that whatever the situation is today, tomorrow is going to be better. And that I am the driver of my own fate. And, you have to be you have to develop resourcefulness. So I learned, I went to the fruit market early in the morning, and I would pick up bruised fruit, and that was my nutrition.
yeah,
So um, it was a great learning time. And, two things happened. One night I was taken in by a charity to a hostel, and it was a big hostel. And the first thing that happened, I was shown into this tiled room, and they told me to take my clothes off, which I did. Then I was hosed down. And I felt so small. And that was a defining moment, because I escaped back into the streets, because there I had some dignity at least. And it stayed with me forever, because it taught me one thing: you can, whenever you're speaking to someone, you can lift their spirits or sink their spirits. And we've got the capacity to do both. And when someone is vulnerable and homeless, the last thing you want to do is to put them into a process which, in the initial stage, involves you taking your clothes off and getting hosed down. Probably things might have been better after that. I might have been interviewed by someone. I don't know. But I escaped back into the street. So that was a huge lesson for me. And then after all this, I went to Dublin in Ireland, and I was busking with I was lent a guitar, and I was busking, playing the guitar in the centre of Dublin. And I did really well, and became good friends with Thin Lizzy, who were just setting out. And that was great, because I learnt something about performance and projecting my voice as well. Because when you're busking, in those days, there was no microphone and speaker you could carry around with you. You had to make it with your own voice box. So that was a learning thing, a huge learning thing. Then I wanted to go back to London and work and conquer that city. So I did lots of jobs. And in terms of the subject today, which I think is about really workplace dynamics today, we know that 62% of people don't feel connected at work. We know that, about 25% of people want to apply are actively applying for other jobs. But the main thing is they don't feel any kind of loyalty or any kind of emotional connection to the company. And I'll come on to that in a second. But I remember I was working on building sites, construction. And I went from one site where it was just task, do this, do that, you're not doing it properly, the kind of things. I went to a new site, and I was greeted by a foreman, and he put his arm around me and he says, "Before you start, I want to show you something." And he showed me the plans, and he said, "This is the palace you're building." And all of a sudden, I felt this jolt of excitement. A palace I'm building. And what he meant was, each and every one of us was building a palace. We were all essential parts of the team. This man was a great leader, because he talked to all of us. He encouraged. If he saw you doing something you could do better, he would say, "I've got a trick. I can show you how to make it easier for yourself and maybe do it faster." You welcome that. But the real moment for me was about 3 months after I'd been working on this site. And he said to me, "Michael, will you open the site in the morning?" He held out these keys. And I said, "Me? I'm just a labourer." And he said, "Yes, I trust you." And I walked home, back to my flat that night, and I was in tears. No one had ever said, "I trusted you." And that was huge. And when you say to someone, "I trust you," it is the most amazing thing, because you are saying, "I'm invested in you. I expect you to deliver for me, because I know who you are. I know the quality of person you are. I know that you do things well, and I trust you." And that was a huge thing for me. So when I went into leadership later on, after having many terrible bosses after that, I had this philosophy as a leader. People want to feel valued in work. They want to feel significance. In other words, they've got a role, they've got responsibilities, and they've got a voice so that they're heard. And those are the fundamental things. But the final thing is they need to know that what they do in whichever part of the organization they are in is contributing to the bigger vision. So that's why he kept saying to me, "You're building a palace," because he thought, rightly so, that you have to paint a picture of where this is going to go, what this is going to be. And I saw myself, leaving a legacy in London. I thought, this is amazing. And everyone on that site worked so hard. He also encouraged us to learn each other's trades. When there was any spare time, if you'd finished your job for the day, he would say, go and learn plastering. You're in the bricklaying bit. Go and learn plastering. It'll do you good. And so it went on. And that carried with me for the rest of my life. So when I went into leadership, those are the principles that underpinned, what I did and how I approached people.
Yeah, but I will like, because you said the minister who said the things 2 years ago, like
Yeah.
those people, they are privileged and they haven't got a clue what they're talking about because they have never
Oh,
experienced any adversity in
no.
life. So Mike, a great friend of mine in the London area, Kent, he says, Mike, you're looking good for your age. Please
Okay.
share the elixir with me. He's
Okay.
always like, but I don't know, like I
Yeah.
think I look great. But
Yes, you
he
do.
asks, should soft skills be taught at school?
Well, in life, the things that get you progressing are soft skills. It's the ability. I learned to talk to strangers when I was homeless because you
Yeah,
had to. That was a very important skill. And now I stand in front of audiences of strangers and I'm used to it. It doesn't faze me. Um, the ability to communicate, the ability to empathize. Although we've got some American politicians saying the trouble with the world is we've got too much empathy, which is
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah,
And I think the ability to use and discover your emotional intelligence and also your imagination. You know, you you can't go through school if the only subject where you could be creative is art. Does that make sense? That
yeah,
when
yeah,
we think of creativity, we think of art. But, if, for example, I'm teaching history and I say, I don't want you to write an essay, I want you to, with a group, come back and enact that piece of history tomorrow. Do a little drama on it, because you're just touching people's imagination. And if that's not stimulated at school, if you don't know how to ask questions, if you don't know how to talk to people, if you don't know how to negotiate, all these things, and many people leave school without those things. So, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, the very foundation of life should be to have the soft skills to get by and to live as a human being with other human beings, and that requires your ability to connect with people and communicate and ask things and deliver things, and also to be creative in your job, whatever job it is.
yeah. But Mike, like, will it say? Are you telling me that you're self-taught? So you were homeless, you got the job, you were
Yep,
building a palace, and then
yep.
you just moved on from there, and then you are literally self-taught.
I am. I taught myself the guitar. I am self-taught, and in fact, I went to university when I was 42 to do an MBA, a Master of Business Administration.
Yeah,
And I read the books that were around then on leadership. And I thought, this doesn't square with me. There were a lot of American writers who were
yeah,
writing
yeah.
about business and leadership. And I thought, this is not good. I just don't agree with it. And of course, now we look back and say, no, they were wrong. Um, so when I went to the MBA, I'd experienced so much that I did pass the course. I did so.
Yeah.
But it I had to be challenging as well during the lectures. I had to be because I can't take, for example, one very famous chief executive billionaire ran his own company, said, every year I have a cull of people. Like they were culling seals. You get rid of soap because it keeps people that are left behind on edge. You know, and I think that
Yeah.
is the stupidest, most emotionally unintelligent thing you can say. You sack people every year, just randomly, just so
To
that
keep.
people who are left behind are on edge.
But that is what is happening today because
Yeah.
people are we are controlled by fear. Well,
Yes.
I no, yeah, well, one continent in particular. I don't
Yep.
think we in Europe we don't look at we face it because we know how bad things can turn in a
Yep.
second. So, and
Yep.
I don't think that we want to repeat that or like what happened in the Second World War Two. That is
No.
just horrible. So,
Yeah.
but
I
but but
know.
but when because we if we are driven by fear in the market or at the
Yep.
workplace, so how do you see and what do you address it in your book to like because we are talking about psychological safety and we are talking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
speak up your mind and
Yep.
like
Yep.
do this and do that
I
but
do.
still like
Yeah. I think I don't explicitly talk about it, but I think the experiences and the story as I've told it, it kind of shows you that at each stage I'm learning something new. I mean, I started in the steelworks. This is after the building site, but a
yeah
couple of
yeah
years
yeah
later, and it was a heavy job. I had tongs and these big gloves, and you were taking this big bit of molten steel and clamping it, on the die. And I said to them, the foreman, I said, "What am I actually making here?" He said, "You don't need to know that."
yeah
Now, that was really interesting because I said, "I do need to know it because I like to know that I'm producing something that's going to be useful and I like to know where it goes." So I organized a bus because I was elected trade unionist at the age of 19. Okay.
yeah
Um, and in every place of employment, I was elected trade unionist. I was usually the youngest. I think if you had a Scottish accent, you were kind of, people just thought, oh, that's the person for the trade union. But I got a bus to take all the workers on this plant. We got a day off and we went down to the Ford Motor Company's factory to see the camshafts that we were making being put onto a Ford motor and explained its function in the car. Right? So then people said, and they say, how do you do that? I work in the steelworks and we make camshafts. Now, this is critical because I have spoken to people in large corporations and I say to them, so what's the vision of the company? I don't know. In other words, they're doing a job. They don't know how the job connects with, down the chain or up the chain on the eventual customer. They don't know how their job affects another department if something's passed from one department to another. In other words, they are simply doing tasks. They've got a function. This is in large organizations. And the organization demands of them loyalty. But the organizations are not loyal to employees because, you know, if there's a bad month, if the spreadsheet shows a deficit, there'll be
yeah
people heaved out the door. So you can't have it just one way and not the other. And so I've worked with a lot of organizations in this, and it is extraordinary when you connect people with a bigger purpose. In other words, this company I work for, is it good for the world? Does it make a good impact? It's important. Does it make a positive imprint? Or are we, producing, weapons? I mean, I
yeah
wouldn't work for a weapons company. Some do, and I understand that. But I want to know that the company is a positive place to work. I want to know that what I'm doing matters. I want to know that what I'm doing is recognized, and that if something goes on wrong down the line, it's not my fault because no one's
yeah
connected me with that. You know what I mean? So I think we've got a lot to do around the workplace. It's changed from when I was young. changed so much because people then didn't have high expectations of their employer. They knew they were just pieces of the jigsaw. You know what I mean? Which could be taken
Well,
out.
yeah, and what you're saying, me listening to you, well, of course, when you were homeless, that age, the era was just totally different because I'm a social educator.
Yeah,
This would
yeah,
never happen today that you would
yeah,
get hosed down or whatever.
yeah,
We would treat people with respect and
yeah,
whatnot. Because sometimes when you look back and see the atrocities that like
mm,
women who got pregnant that they did not have a significant other, they were lied to that
yeah,
the child did die or
yes,
blah blah blah. But and also what you are explaining, two things which gets me is that my daughter was working at the local food store, and
yeah,
she was on the register, beep
yeah,
beep, hello
yes,
beep,
yeah,
and of course it is, looking at it, it's probably the most lame job ever, but you are securing that the people get the food on the plates, so it
yes,
is in a sense important.
yes,
And then that took me my thoughts to the school system,
yes,
where kids today, they can't understand why they're in school. They don't understand why they should be learning this. They don't understand why this is important,
yes,
and we tell them all the time. But
yes,
and then they learn through. Well, I did it. You probably as well, but you learned it the hard way because
yeah,
maybe your life was different back then, and
yeah,
but the thing is that we all learn that if you are working as a member, like you are taking the trash,
yeah,
collecting the trash, then you must be a bad person, or not a
yeah,
bad person, but you did not learn anything.
yeah.
And but still, those people, they are making sure that we don't smell, or the area don't smell well.
Oh,
So,
listen,
so how
yeah,
how would you approach? How do you approach young people? Because we, like,
yeah,
our time is, let's say, like almost like we have been there, done that. We know stuff, and yada yada yada. But the young people today, they have all the social media. They are scared
oh,
shitless. They have
yeah,
anxiety, and
yeah,
they have this and that. And then they have, as you mentioned, the kid who watches a homeless, can't understand that,
yeah,
why is there a person who are homeless, but then they grow up and then they do as their parents tell them to do, because yeah, this person is lazy,
yeah.
because that is the politics in the home.
That's right. So if someone is down on their luck, it's their fault. That's been the kind of narrative always. Um, People who are unemployed, it's their fault. They're lazy. Now, I've worked with a lot of people who've been long-term unemployed, and they're not lazy. Some of them have got a fear of going for an interview. Some of them don't believe they've got a value. Um, there are all kinds of reasons. And once you get people over that barrier, you see something amazing. You see someone growing and someone feeling so proud. I remember this one guy, he'd been out of work for 6 years. And he said, after a few weeks, he said, "This is just brilliant. I get up in the morning, I shave, I get on a bus, I read a newspaper, and you just feel fantastic. And then you come to work and you've got friends there. And then at the weekend, you can go out for a pizza with your friends that you've made at work." I mean, that was the difference to his life. The fact you can get up and shave in the morning. Now, there's no point in blaming people who haven't made that step. Help them to do it. You know, there are so many things we could be doing with young people to really build them. Build their confidence, their emotional intelligence, their soft skills, and allow them to develop their passion. Because I wanted to play the guitar. They didn't teach guitar when I was at school. That was you know, guitar,
Yeah.
you can do violin, or you can do the trumpet. You know what I mean? And I didn't want to. So I taught myself. And, when young people have an interest, you've got to feed it. You have
Yeah.
to feed it. Because that is when they start learning, really learning, when they're interested in something. And you see them. And of course, whatever you're doing, you have to learn supplementary skills. So you learn all sorts of things, even if it's just playing the guitar, you learn other things around that. So if you have a passion about something, then we should allow people to pursue that. I've met kids who say, I want to be a chef, and they're 6. And I say, why do you want to be a chef? Because I love food and I want to make great food for people. I want to put food on the dining table for people because I love doing it. And my mum lets me put the plates down on the table when we've got visitors. And you recognize they've actually got a real interest in this. Let them pursue that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so many are steered into the workplace. Sorry. And, the chambers of commerce and the business organizations will all say, we need people who've got soft skills. Well, that's true enough. But they've always got an opinion on what schools are doing. Now, the bit of training for their particular organization is quite easy to deliver when they're there. What schools should be giving people is a sense of themselves, who they are. What am I passionate about? What do I want to do? And who do I want to become rather than what I want to become? There's a big difference.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
just want to I just want to give a shout out because Rab Bassi, he says, I think culling, how do you say this word? Culling.
culling is a management style of poor
Style
leaders.
of poor leadership.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually, if your early experiences have been tough, it turns you into a tough
Mm.
taskmaster. So, how did you keep yourself soft and helpful? Because what you are saying
Yeah.
is that you literally are showing, because you must be a relic when you do that, because if you are doing this, then the name calling starts.
Yeah.
Back in the days, if you cried, you must be
Yeah.
gay.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you did that, oh, you must be gay. If
Oof.
it's this, like it's so much things and
Yeah. Yeah.
opinions that people,
Yeah.
like, we all tend to go as we are like sheeps. We are just like, oh, this must be a great
Yeah.
character to follow,
Yeah.
like what is happening somewhere, not mentioned, not mentionable.
Yeah.
So how did you, as Rap is asking, like, how did you keep yourself soft and helpful? Like, how did
Well,
you maintain
yeah.
those qualities?
Well, when I was out in the street, there were younger people younger than me, came onto the street. So you look out for people, you look after people. I've had to, phone an ambulance because someone was dying. I've seen people die beside me of hypothermia. So you looked out for each other. So there's a caring side of the homeless community. You look out for other people, and you see people looking at you as if you were filth. And I got spat on once, and I chased the man, and I said, "What'd you do that for?" And he was frightened because he didn't expect me to stand up and chase after him.
Yeah.
I wasn't begging; I was just homeless. I never begged. So I I have a real belief that schools can, because they did it to me. They made me feel I was stupid, that I was inadequate, that I was of no use to the world. And I think the final thing the head teacher said to me was, you might be of some use to manufacturing. Now, the interesting thing is it was manufacturing that was propping up the British economy. It was steel, it was shipbuilding,
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
mining. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And you think, how is this possible to create a kind of mind that travels in one direction? So there's only one way. If you go into the professions, if you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, that's fine. But, manufacturing, but what about civil engineering? All these things associated. So we're brought up in tram lines. And once you get off those tram lines, you begin to see other things. You see things from different perspectives. And, the thing we should be teaching more than anything else in school is curiosity. Be
Yeah.
curious. If you see something and you want to find out about it, come and tell us about it. Let's look at it together as a class. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you see something that upsets you, come here, let's talk about it as a class. So that's when someone will say, there are homeless people on the streets and I don't understand it because we've got 2 spare bedrooms in our house. I mean, I remember a little girl going back to her mother and saying, can Michael come and sleep with us in the house tonight? And I
Yeah.
said, no, 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 no. The mother was horrified. But, children at their best respond to things emotionally with their own eyes, with their own ears. They see things we don't see. But if we start cutting them off, if we start saying, don't look there, that's someone out in the street. Don't look at them. Don't look at them. You begin to create these barriers. So that foreman I had in the building site helped me enormously in answer to that question because I realized that he looked out for me. He wanted me to succeed in whatever I was doing. He didn't expect me to be working in construction for the rest of my life. I think he saw me as going on to do something else. And that was a huge lesson for me because all the other bosses I'd had were do this, do that, you're 2 minutes late this morning, all that stuff. And that's what people expect in the workplace because that's traditionally what it's been like. And a great leader is vulnerable. They're vulnerable. They bleed like you and I do. They're not
Yeah.
any
Yeah. Yeah.
different. And their job is not to be in charge of you. It's to put you in charge of of the company, put you in charge of your expertise, what you do. And that is something that a lot of organizations still lack. There's this hierarchy that just seems to go endlessly up. And, people employ more people. And then they promote someone because they're hard, they do work well at the job into leadership. And then they lose that person doing the job. They go into leadership. They don't want to be in leadership. They get more money. They've not been trained in leadership. This is common. It's common. Leadership should be taught at school. It should be, part of the explaining what leadership is. If you're sitting here and you look out for the people on your right and on your left, you're a leader. You know what I mean? That's where it starts. If you see someone who has fallen in the playground, you go and help them. You're a leader. You're taking action. And when you start to teach children that, they develop a different kind of response to the world. And when they go into the workplace, they bring a different dimension. But a lot of people are just trained on a tram. It's like, this is the track you're taking.
Yeah. But 2 things come to mind. Did you ever seek out the foreman who told you that you were building a palace? Okay, you talk about that later. But regarding to the school and teaching leadership skills, because isn't it always what you learn in school, especially in elementary school? It's the one who shouts out the most, who bullies you, like because if you go and help a person who fell or la la la, then the name calling starts. You're a
That's fine.
sissy, you're a la 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 la, and yet that is fine because you, in the end, you will probably be better than that person.
For sure.
Like yes, so
Absolutely.
and then we come to the education of the teachers. And
Yeah.
again, like we are in the loop because why is it my problem that I teach them? My thing is just to teach them math.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially because I had so many role models when I was growing up, especially in elementary school, and it was just amusing to think, like at the age of 59, just go back and say, "Ooh, yeah, why am I starting to look like this teacher, or,
Yeah,
or doing the thing?"
yeah.
So
I mean,
how do we go, and do we shove it down their throats, the
uh,
government, or because why is it that we all have to be one size fits all?
yeah. Well, I think people will talk about an inspiring teacher they had at school. The chances are that teacher wasn't liked in the school because they did things their
Yeah,
own way. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They
yeah,
were a bit of a maverick, perhaps, and they had different teaching methods. But it's about firing the imagination of the people in your class. It's about giving them life lessons as well as lessons in maths or geography or history. And you connect all these subjects to being a human being, being you. Why geography? The first thing you've got to teach someone is why geography might be of interest to them. You know,
yeah,
not you're here to learn geography now, shut up. I remember that with me. I didn't get on with the geography teacher at all. And he kept telling me to shut up whenever I spoke to the person next to me. And sometimes I was asking a question or saying, I've been in Egypt when I was a kid. The teacher would say, no one cares when you've been in Egypt. And I said, what? You should have said, right, come out and tell them your memories of Egypt. What was it like? Because they were
yeah,
doing the Egyptians at the time. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And it's about giving people this curiosity, this if you don't understand something, ask a question. A statistic which I learnt fairly recently was in primary school, kids ask an average, particularly younger years, they ask an average of 400 questions a day. When they get to second year in high school, they don't ask any questions at school or even to their parents now because they've got Google. So, you learn by asking questions, by walking over to something, to studying it, to taking a lingering look and asking someone. That's how you learn. And often, even in a subject like history, you might have a fascination with something you saw in history. It might be the workhouses of the late 19th century, when children, boys were being sent up chimneys to clean the chimneys. You know,
yeah,
when you think how far we've come from there, and yet we've developed another challenge, which is we don't know how to get the best out of people. And people need to feel from the very first minute they arrive that they've got agency. You're not just here to do tasks. Then you get people saying, that's not in my job description. And you get bosses saying, that's above your pay grade. These are absurd things to say. Or, I heard this so many times in the 80s. There's plenty of other people out there that would love your job. That's just stop saying that. Say, I chose you. I chose you because I've got really great expectations about you. And what I've seen so far, I'm excited. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
that it changes the tempo of their work. It makes them feel valued. It makes them feel that they are contributing something. And having worked in the steelworks and not being told what I was producing on this line is absurd. You don't think you're just doing this and you're doing that. That's your job. By the way, it was hot, hot,
yeah,
hot.
yeah.
And imagine that. You don't need to know what you're actually producing. But I was fascinated by how this worked. And
Curious,
yes, curious. You,
but how is, because I remember, like when growing up and being a teenager, like if we wanted something to happen, we just had to make it up as it went
yes,
along.
no,
But
absolutely. Yeah.
it feels like now that we have, because of the social media and
Mm.
stuff, and when people say, "No, I don't have to do this," You know, when
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
in a youth club, and the youth club was in a school, and they maybe something got ruined, and I went to every class and said, "Why is it that you are ruining stuff in the school? Do you know who
yeah,
pays them? Yeah, the school. Well, yes, in a sense, but where does the money come from?
yeah,
Well, from the council. No,
yeah,
you have to go further. Like you, and
yeah,
then when I told them this money comes from your parents and it affects us all,
yeah,
and same as if you just say, no, I don't have to do this. Well,
yeah,
then the streets will not be cleaned, and
yeah, yeah,
there are so many things
yeah,
that we could just ugh.
yeah.
And as we mentioned before we started,
Mm.
I told you from a friend of mine who is a doctor in the education business. When she was studying in England, she learned that the reason for schools were to make good little soldiers.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
what is your like? If we think about that you
yeah.
have to
Well,
be,
they did. They had
yeah,
we called them. They were called the CCF. Actually, these were mainly
CCF. You
yes,
have to say,
something cadet force. Um, but
uh,
they did. They wore army or navy RAF uniforms in school, um, and that was the private schools in particular. They were the officer class, you see, because you're educated to be an officer. You may be completely hopeless, but you've got the education to be an officer. And the public schools, they were the troops. That's how it worked out. So even when I went into industry, the guy who'd be walking across the bridge, you know, over the workshop with his shirt and tie, he would speak like that because he was public school. So he went straight into management from public school, straight into management to train as a manager. Now, how would I have got from what I was doing to being a manager? It was just, don't be ridiculous, I would say. You're not management material. And I thought, I'm better management material than the people that are doing the jobs because I've been out and I've seen things and I know how to get the best out of people. And surely management is getting the best out of people and making them, feel welcome when they come into work in the morning and understanding that they've got things going on in their life sometimes. And you've got to listen and you've got to ask questions. You're looking a bit pale today. Is everything okay? That never happened in those days.
no, no,
Never. Any manager that did that would be given a row. What, he's trying to make people ill, trying to give them an excuse to go home. So that you're right that there was a lot of military preparation in
uh,
schools here, and yes, it was the CCF, the something cadet force.
yeah.
Um,
Rabasi,
oh yeah,
he
combined cadet
has
force. Yeah,
combined cadet
yes,
force. But now, when we are talking, you must, because of the condition, like the world is just bonkers, and it's either
yeah,
you are on the right or you're on the left.
yes,
And when we hear two male figures, we are talking about soft skills,
yes,
and people have to get, you know,
yeah,
like allowed to try out stuff, and like in the
of
80s
course.
when there were no lines and you were
Yeah,
just
yeah,
like whatever, we
yeah.
would be considered as left-wing woke people.
Yes. Well, I think that's right. That the woke thing is such a nonsense. I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
is.
yeah, yeah,
Of
yeah,
course, there are
yeah,
extremes. There are extremes, but
yeah,
woke is simply having empathy. Seeing that other people, might need support. I mean, it, of course, every generation has its own extreme. I mean, I was going around like a hippie in the '60s, you know,
yeah,
and people would look horrified. I understand that. Then we had the punk era, and so it goes on. But it is a nonsense that if you don't learn to understand where other people are coming from, to see things through their eyes as well as your own eyes, this thing about walking in their shoes, you'll never be a good leader. You'll never be a good manager. You'll be a person that's, has a limited perspective of life. If you can't imagine yourself there, rather than here. And when you walk past homeless people, for example, and you say, "Oh, for goodness sake," you know,
Go,
what is
yeah,
that
go somewhere
saying? What is that
else.
saying?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, lifestyle choice. Well, that's very easy for politicians to say when they want to take no responsibility for the fact that, people have not got a home, that they can't afford the rents because look what's happening in the prices at the moment. I mean, we've got a crisis, and Britain's going to be the worst affected, apparently, by the oil shortages. Already slender economy, which was mismanaged through the 80s and the 90s. And here we are. Um, and the 2000s actually it was mismanaged a lot because people took this ideological position. You have to give big tax breaks to people that have got lots of money, don't regulate the banks, build the city of London so that it's the financial capital. Let's get rid of industry because that doesn't matter. It's not going to pay. And they're not the kind of people that our society values, So we're reaping
Uh,
all the stuff that's come back from that. And there's a lot. And we're now entering a new phase. And I see nothing short of reinvention of a lot of ideas. And, even, thinking philosophically, why are we here? And when you look at what's happening in the world just now, we need a new narrative. We need something totally new. And, young people bring that. There's some very articulate young people who are coming through, very articulate. And you hope that they can maintain that because they need to bring new ideas and they need to push those ideas. I mean, the Greens are doing really well in Britain. The Greens, I mean, that's extraordinary that the Green
yeah.
Party are now polling, really well. Um, and so that's how far we've come. That's how sick people are of the way things have been. And people want to change. And, I say, let young people make that change, design it.
Yeah. But that is also because when I was growing up
Yeah,
in the 70s, what do you think the people in Biafra will say if I don't
yeah,
meet up?
yeah,
And I literally said to my father, I don't know, because they are far, far away. And
yeah.
then in the 80s, then we had Ethiopia, and now
That's
we
right.
have like, and it's ongoing.
Oh,
If, like, call me innocent,
mhm.
if we in the West would do something that we meant wholeheartedly, we
Yeah,
would have fixed this crap that is
yeah,
going on in Africa. We would
yeah.
have like people, then maybe it wouldn't be so extreme like it is, and
Yeah,
all of this war and
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
conflict between religion and whatnot. But time flies when you're having fun, and we only have like 6 minutes. Rap, he
Okay.
says, he asks,
Um,
is there a particular area of soft skills you recommend to be prioritized for developing to have the greatest impact on people, performance, and culture?
right. Well, I
Big
think
question.
it's a big question. There is a project in Scotland called Centre Stage, and I'll come directly to that. Let me start with something that I was told in Toronto by the head of the cultural strategy. And he said the things that drive regeneration in communities is the arts. That's right
Mhm.
across, from performance to painting to writing, sport and activity from dancing to, and the third one was food, because food is an intrinsic part of every community. And we need more food innovation now. So the thing that I saw in this project in Scotland, people go into the performance arena. It's a project that gives people a chance to join this community, and they could be making stage props, they could be dressmaking, they could be stage hands, they could be working in the food bit. And they got chefs from the local hotels to prepare some meals during COVID. It's a really imaginative project. And the thing is, the impact that has on those people from, aged, well, 3 to 93. The 93-year-old might sing in a choir, might be in a drama. A 15-year-old might be on a stage musical. The standards are incredibly high. And here is a community that has developed this incredible capacity in the population. So it is about those things. It's about the ability to express yourself in different ways. And if you find expression, whether it's in the arts or it's cooking or it's in sport, you've made a huge headway. So in terms of the soft skill, I think it's about the arts in particular at that stage, because just being able to express yourself in different ways is really important. There's a lovely story about how confident children are when they're very young. And it's told by Sir Ken Robinson, who is, for me, the greatest man on education. He's sadly died. But if you look at his TED Talks, they're fantastic. And he said there was a little girl, she was sitting at the back of the class and she was really focusing on what she was drawing. She had her arm around the drawing, and the teacher went up and says, "So what are you drawing this morning?" And she said, "I'm drawing a picture of God, miss." And the teacher said, "But we don't know what God looks like." She said, "You will in a minute." Little girl. I mean, that's what we want to encourage, this confidence. And small children have it, and we take it away. So I think the arts are a huge part of education. That's why I would, if I'm doing a course on how to present to people, I get them to do different things before they ever stand up and talk. I say, I want you to do a broadcast, an on-location broadcast of this story in the newspaper. Right, so they go off and they come up with something. You're all the time giving people challenges to get them to express, to see things from different angles, to be that bit creative, and not to worry about their ideas being seen as stupid, because every idea, every invention was seen as stupid. Everything that was ever created. You know what I mean? Television. What do you need a television for? That's stupid.
I remember the days when here in Iceland there were discussions about if the TV should be black or white or it should be in color.
Yes, I know.
And some politicians said that, we don't know, like we don't need color in our life. But and also when you participate in this community, you are a member of something bigger.
Absolutely.
Stay away from the communities where the money is directed, because sports. They are ruining the sports with money.
Yes, I know.
And it's just, and they only see you as a commodity. That like for me, it's just like ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah. So now we are we have 1 minute, but my rap, he is fantastic guy. So when you're young, they know no boundaries. Poor leaders set boundaries to control. And he says, "Thank you for your inspirations. Happy celebrations as you grow wiser."
Oh, thank you, Rab.
Yes, and you should.
Really appreciate that.
You two should go together, because
no, I'd like to.
His wife makes a fascinating food. I have never got it, but I am I will eat it. But sorry, you were saying?
I was saying that this thing about boundaries. That. Putting all these boundaries on, someone fell during a game of tig tag in a playground a couple of weeks ago. They banned tig tag. I mean, this monumental folly. There was one head teacher in London, and she said to her pupils, "Homework this weekend, climb a tree and get someone to take a photograph of you up the tree." Brilliant.
Did she get fired?
No, she actually turned that school around dramatically.
If you can climb a tree, then you can bloody well get down the tree as well.
Yes. Look,
and if you fall,
we all did it when I was young.
Yes, and if you fall down and break your arm, then then you have learned a valuable lesson. You will not do that again.
So I think we're overprotective of children. And I don't mean from serious assault. I mean, just generally. A safe space is a safe psychological space. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be a place where everything's made of sponge, so if you fall, you bounce back up again. That's not a safe space. Safe space is a place where you feel comfortable to do what you want. You know what I mean?
And by doing this, by taking this away from them, then the anxiety and fear for
Yeah.
literally everything,
Yes.
failure and everything comes by. But
Absolutely.
so
And well, sorry. Last thing I will say: make mistakes. What's wrong
yeah,
with making a mistake? You learn from making a mistake, and yet you come out of school thinking I'm right or I'm wrong. There's nothing halfway. This
yeah,
is wrong. This might be right. It's not a matter of wrong and right. It's about what you do. And a lot of the people that have changed society were lambasted for being wrong, for being quacky,
mm,
crazy. You think about that. New ideas have never come without criticism, and yet
yeah,
we need them.
yeah. So Rap Bassi here gets the final word. Always the pessimist. No Rap. Oh, he is the best. So people can find you on LinkedIn, Facebook, and X.
Oh well,
True.
well, not X now, for very good
Oh,
reasons.
yes, I
But
know, but this
LinkedIn,
was the
Facebook,
info
and
I found.
my site is
You,
mikestevenson.net.
yeah, don't over like I am going there. Like
Yeah, sorry,
like I did my homework
I'm
because
sorry.
yeah, I quit X and I turned to Blue Sky or whatever it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
just to show. So
Oh yes,
mikestevenson.net, that is your website, and people can buy the book on
yes,
amazon.com or
yes.
amazon.co.uk.
Yep.
And I this conversation has been great. And why? Because my motto is, and I was always scolded for being curious. Why are you
Yeah.
so curious? Stop being so curious. Well, look at me now, because I have the greatest thing going on in my life. And
Yes, great.
I urge people to be curious, be interested, and be inspired. And
Absolutely.
like somebody else said in a conversation, lean in and do.
Absolutely.
That's how you learn to live.
It
And
is.
then on a final note, the next inspiring conversation is with John Rutgeraki. I hope that is the correct way to pronounce his name. Next Thursday, April 23rd. And the topic is the subconscious advantage, why better thinking doesn't fix broken communications. So everything is like, it's a theme
Hey,
here going on. So, Mike, thank you very much for getting in touch with me, and thank you for being a guest. And I think that we learned heaps. It's good to know about good people out there, and just to have a great conversation, an inspiring conversation.
thank you very much.